Yes, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Rugby Muscle Podcast. This is our first time, I think, in 2023, which still feels weird to say, even though we're in July. It still feels weird to say that we're in 2023, which is, just a case of us being old. What the hell am I talking about? We're back doing podcasts, we're back doing interviews, and although it doesn't seem like an interview when I bring Alex on, we are going to talk, and we are going to have a good back and forth about some topics that have been taking up some of my brain space recently. First one is, Alex, how you doing?
Yeah, good man, good. Just taking over as usual.
Just ticking over. Working with Kabuki's doing good for you?
Yeah, it's all going well at the lab. We've got a lot of big projects just started. Your Kabuki Plus project, which I'll probably plug later on. Have you looked at it yet?
No.
I'll sort you out with a login, I think.
Yeah, plug it a little bit later. So we've got education, we've got equipment, and we've got coaching, right? That's what you guys all do.
That's what we do, but the Education Plus is just education. Maybe I'll share my screen and I'll go through it at some point later on.
Oh, interesting. So there's a little teaser. You don't have to share your screen you share the screen off air, offline.
Yeah, sweet.
We'll talk about that. But yeah, this is the Rugby Muscle Podcast. So we are talking, we used to have that intro guy who used to tell us that we're talking everything that you need to be the ultimate rugby player that you can be. And that's still the case. It's still the case. We're still going. So we're going to be talking about a few different things that pertain to mostly amateur rugby players, but we'll throw some professional stuff in there. And if at any point you feel like supporting the podcast, 5-star reviews are always appreciated. Thumbs up on the YouTube channel, always appreciate. Any comments, even if it's just for the algorithm, or any questions for any future podcasts are encouraged below on the YouTube section. And if you want actual programming taken care of for you, rugby-muscle.com is your one-stop shop for all of that stuff. Okay, mate, so what do we have lined up that we were going to discuss today? Bit of an update for as far as your coaching goes. I want to know, are there any freaks that you've been coaching recently? Because I know there have been some, but are there any?
Yeah, so we've got, define freak, I guess. We've got a few world record holders.
That would pass as freak.
Yeah, bunch of national guys. So we got a team at nationals right now. So USA Drug Testers Nationals is this week. I think we got between our guys there, maybe above 20 world records.
Oof.
Across weight classes and across age groups. We should get some more national records, I suspect. I know Charlie has been benching above her world record all through her prep, so that's pretty nice. But we also got the girl who's coming up straight behind Charlie. She won't hit. I think Charlie did like a 320 bench the other day. So Michelle won't hit that one, but she'll hit like 280 or something like that. Just solid, right?
Pounds. Which is pounds, still, yeah. That's still a lot. So 320, 145 kilos? No, 142-ish?
It's around 120, I think. Let me do a...
No. 280 might be. Look at this camera. Follow me, by the way.
145. It's not following you, bud.
It did follow me. It's not going to follow me all the way down to my charger, but...
Anyway. Okay. Yeah, so it is 145.
Okay. That's a big lift.
Yeah, for like a 80 kilo woman, yeah.
That's phenomenal. So,
yeah.
Okay, strong people.
Yeah.
Speaking of strong people, we've seen people getting in the gym and working their asses off for the Rugby World Cup. Have you seen any of that?
No, man. I've watched... The only rugby I've really watched recently is the start of the Tri-Nations, or Quad Nations, I guess. And
the Rugby Championship.
And the Chiefs Crusaders final. Obviously, I always give up Chiefs rugby. It was a good game, man. Yeah. Yes, I've only
New Zealand absolutely destroyed... Well, they destroyed them in the first half, and then in the second half, I think they actually... It might have either been 5-5, or they might have even lost the second half, but they clearly took their foot off the gas.
You're 30 points up at half time, right? Like, there's a...
Yeah, but that's something that I know that the All Blacks don't do, is take their... They build up scores and then they just keep going and going and going. Maybe Argentina pulled their finger out a little bit better, but...
Argentina's still a top-class team, right? Like, Argentina could win the World Cup. It's not. It's not like out of question. And then Springboks absolutely dicked Australia as well.
Speaking of which, that's what I think about this is why actual sport is better than like powerlifting and like how do I put it? Yeah, I'd say like any sort of barbell sports and strength sports, they're always like, for the most part, and especially like bodybuilding, they're basically already decided who's going to win, etc. before the event, because it's all about your training that you've put in beforehand. And you can argue that rugby's the same, but actually, you could argue from a philosophical standpoint that rugby is kind of the same in that, you've done all the work and that's what's led you to this occasion. But it is very much about performing on the day. And so, as you say, Argentina can win the World Cup, Ireland, obviously, France, obviously New Zealand, and then we're looking at South Africa definitely, those four, I think, New Zealand, South Africa, Ireland, France, those four are the front runners, and wouldn't be a surprise if either of those four would win. But then you've also got potentially England, Argentina, Scotland,
maybe
Australia. Australia. All of those teams can beat any of the others on a given day and have done previously. So it's it's wide open. And you're actually guaranteed, the way the draw works, you're guaranteed one of England, Argentina, Japan. Sorry, when I say one of, two of. You're guaranteed two of these teams are going to be in the semi-final. England, Argentina, Japan, Australia, Wales, Fiji. So two of those teams are guaranteed a semi-final spot. And only two of those four that we mentioned that are sort of undeniable are going to make the semis because of the way the groups have worked out.
Yeah, there's some rough pools there, right?
Yeah,
some, really
but it's not even the pools. It's the two rough pools, then face the winners and the runners up of the other rough pool. So it's interesting how it's going to work out. But then again, once you've made it that far, say you're England or say you're Wales, and you've made it you've got yourself into the quarterfinal. You got yourself a fairly easy quarterfinal that is going to be winnable, and then it's only two more games that you have to actually step up for. And any team could do that.
Well, look at, because you mentioned Japan, right? Now, I don't think Japan's going to win a World Cup, right?
No,
but
they could.
They could. It wouldn't be say Uruguay got into this. You just wouldn't say Uruguay was going to win this.
No,
but Japan, they've beaten South Africa before, and
Japan have beaten South Africa before. They've beaten Ireland before. The thing with Japan and Fiji. Maybe Georgia, but probably not Georgia. Definitely Japan, Fiji, maybe Tonga. Is they don't get the year-round or the regularly scheduled games that the other top-tier nations do, and so when the World Cup comes around, they're more prepared than ever. You know what I mean? And all the other teams are, but they've gone from 98% to 99%. Whereas the Fijians, the Tongans, those teams, they've gone from 70% efficiency to close to 99%. They've been able to step that up. I think that makes a difference. Does it make enough difference? There we go. I finally sorted out my charger. Does it make enough of a difference to win a World Cup or to win those big games? Even then, right? Probably not.
Nah, their 99% is probably New Zealand's 85% or whatever.
But it's gonna make for fun watching.
Oh, for sure, man. And then if you look at how Fiji and Samoa have done in the Super Rugby, they put on some shows, man. They've not won.
Well, they've won some, which is enough, and that's without when you're looking at not necessarily the Samoans, the Pacific, but you look at all of those countries and they're missing out in the Super Rugby with their top players that are all in France.
Yeah, for sure, man.
And Japan and England.
And look at the Reds. So the Reds were the only team to beat the Chiefs this year, right? Obviously, apart from the Crusaders. Mm-hmm. But in the Super Rugby competition, and the Reds team is basically the Australia team.
Yeah,
so they can play some amazing rugby. So yeah, I think it's up in the air, which is a good place to be, right?
Yeah, and it's such a shame for I'm feeling it for Irish fans right now, because their team has just done so well for the past. I think it's like literally a year from now, where they got spanked by New Zealand to begin their New Zealand tour, and you're like, oh my god, they're nowhere near as good. And then they went on to win that tour. Then they were undeniable in the autumn, and then they went on won the Grand Slam. And now you're thinking, man, this team is on fire. Yet they're still going to meet either the All Blacks or France in their quarterfinal. I mean, unless Italy do something ridiculous, but either the All Blacks or France. And so then you're thinking, crap, they're just going to, like, that's tough for them just to get out, even get out of the quarters.
Yeah, no, but
Again.
If they have a good showing at the World Cup, they'll be considered the best Irish team ever.
Yeah, I mean, no Irish team has ever made it past the quarterfinal. So,
Right.
but then that's the annoying. That's the tough thing. That's why I say about like the competition is truly the thing here is like Ireland have done so well up until this point, but they could also just go down in the quarterfinals. And it wouldn't even be that surprising. Like that's insane. Like how dominant you are doesn't matter because they've been really dominant up until this point. They've done everything right. Man, crazy. Who do you think is going to win? Can I get you to actually put your name to a team?
I mean, yeah, I don't know enough. I've not watched enough rugby to really have a good opinion, though. I mean, I'd like to see New Zealand or Ireland win. I think that'd be the best. I think New Zealand need it to sustain like that All Black name because they've just not been as good in the last couple of years, right?
Which is really harsh when you consider not being as good because the previous decade they've been the most dominant team in the history of international sport. So to say they're not as good is harsh. Like,
I mean,
but it's also true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, what rank in New Zealand now? Like third, fourth?
Probably. Yeah. Look it up.
New Zealand are third right now. Ireland, France, New Zealand, South Africa, and Scotland. Jeez.
Yeah.
So like, how long? Like I just like the name of New Zealand being the top rugby team. Just feels like it's the right place for them to be.
Well, yeah. Right. So anything other than dominant and first is not good enough for New Zealand.
Yep, and I bet if you ask the All Blacks, they'd say the same.
Yeah. And all the New Zealand public, which is like, eventually that's gonna go.
I mean, it has to, right?
Yeah,
I just don't want it to. I just kind of like it. I like the fairy tale.
Ah, okay. So you like the dominant team, like you like Man City as well, then. I mean, even though you don't like football, you get my point.
Yeah, I don't know enough about that.
Mate, you got to cheer for the underdogs, though. But I guess in World Cup terms, New Zealand, well, they're no longer that. They were until 2011 when they won it, and then they won it again in 2015. They weren't that dominant.
No, but then you had that Dan Carter kind of team, didn't you? I was looking back at 2009 All Blacks team the other day. Just I was watching like the All Blacks best tries year by year, and between like 09 and maybe 15, like they had such a good team, just incredible.
Yeah. Anyway, so you're thinking New Zealand. Your heart is saying New Zealand, which is weird. You don't want England to win, mate?
I couldn't care less. I couldn't care less.
So if England play New Zealand,
I'll be there to support rugby.
Yeah. You're not bothered about it.
Nah,
but if New Zealand are playing other teams, and if England are playing again, you're just there to support rugby, which means you're kind of cheering for New Zealand because they're that good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want South Africa to win. It's just South Africans are so hard to deal with, like when they're winning. That's the only thing. Yeah. Did you see Drickus du Plessis on the weekend? By any chance? No. Do you even know who that is? Nope.
He's a UFC fighter. He's basically like, South Africans that are listening to this are probably keen on him now because he's like their guy. He must be their only guy. Actually, I think they've got maybe one other guy that's in the UFC. But he's basically, if you just took like the sort of template for a Dutch South African and said,
yeah,
right, you're going to go in the UFC. He's that. He's just fucking hard, man. He's just hard, and he's a middleweight, and that's it. He just hits like a truck. Got a hell of a jaw, and he's tough. He doesn't look like the most technical, which, again, kind of South African, right? Like, not the most technically, not a very finesse fighter. But, man, he hits like a ton of bricks, and he's going to fight. I think he's going to fight Israel Adesanya for the middleweight strap.
Good luck to him.
Yeah, but like his whole, I mean, anyway, that's by the by. South Africa, I like the way South Africa play rugby, though. To be fair, because they can finesse it. Their backs are getting more and more on point, but they don't come away from 11. Just absolutely dominant forwards. Well, they've got like 3 little Arance. I'm gonna forget the other guy's name, and Colby. They've got like 3 tiny wingers that are all on point, which is the new in thing for World Rugby.
I mean, Shane Williams did it first, but that's by the by.
He did do it first, but then since then you've got him. You've got who's the little one for New Zealand, the Fijian.
The Fijian.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I was going to say Nehem on the Scudder. He was pretty little. He had to say that same idea of just amazing techers.
He was around for about a year.
Yeah, he blew out his knee or something, didn't he? He was just being injury prone.
Anyway, pop the name of the Fijian New Zealand. Why have I space on his name? He's very good. And then you've got there's a little one for France as well. Each team now is starting to get that little winger that's being dominant.
Yeah, I can see that.
That's a different problem to sort of, especially with these like how low you've got to tackle. You're always just going to get stepped.
That's a big deal, right?
I think so.
Fair.
That's one of my predictions for the World Cup. There's going to be at least one game where a red card doesn't necessarily ruin it, but then it's always going to make you question, is that, would that team have won? Like, you look at the Red Roses and the Women's World Cup, right? Like, they lost by a score, and they had 14 players on the pitch for over an hour of the game, I think.
Yeah, it was something like that, wasn't it? I mean, it's the same as look back World Cup finals, New Zealand France.
Yeah.
Right? That was a one referee decision which changed the game, I guess you could say.
I mean, yeah. So I think that's more likely to happen now than ever. And then, I was about to say, you win, but you don't really feel like you won. But of course, you're still going to feel it. Like New Zealand didn't. Yeah. Like the Black Ferns weren't like, we only played 14. They were like, yes, we beat. I think that's what you were going to counter to. Like England, that England team were the most dominant. They were more dominant than the All Blacks were.
Yeah, more winning, I guess is what it was. Maybe not more dominant, but definitely more winning.
They were more winning in a shorter time span. I think that All Blacks team for about a decade were still way more winning, if that makes sense.
Probably.
Depends how you when you start. Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean by just sheer dominance. Yeah. Anyways, let's switch gears. So you're going for, your heart says New Zealand. What does your brain say? What do you think actually?
Probably South Africa.
One team you have not mentioned is France. It's in France.
Enough Northern Hemisphere. I've not watched enough Northern Hemisphere rugby. I don't feel like I'm qualified to talk about it because I don't know.
Okay, this French team. If you're going to watch spoiler alert, I think I'm going to do a video predicting the World Cup. But I think the French are going to go. This is the year. Like you say, you want a good team to represent rugby and whatnot. Like France, for how good how many players and how much of a stamp they have on World Rugby. Like everyone knows the French. They've not won a single World Cup. You know, in fact, the Northern Hemisphere has won one World Cup in the, what has there been, 9 World Cups? I want to say. Yeah, 9 World Cups. 9 World Cups. One team from the Northern Hemisphere has won it, and they've won it once. That is ridiculous.
That's just some bad stats, isn't it?
So I'm gunning for a Northern Hemisphere team. I think I'd like it to be England, to be fair, but I don't see that. I think it's going to be France. It could be Ireland. but it could also be the other two teams that we mentioned. I don't see, like, I see that it is possible that any of those other teams can do it, but I think that the other four, that four are by far the favourites.
Yeah, for sure.
And I don't see anyone other than them winning. But yeah, so I've been looking at a lot of their training, and I've been thinking one of my new favourite hobbies is going on the England Instagram. Actually comes up at the top of my feed when I sign into the @Rugby Muscle account. One of the things that happens every time is the top of my feed. It's an England rugby post, and it's something about their training, usually about the gym. And so I go straight to the comments. Because it is fantastic viewing. They get one guy, it could be a really good squat, or it could be a bicep session. It could be them doing sprints. It could be them doing rowing. Whatever it is, the two of the first three comments are people bitching about it. Oh, you should be doing more on the rugby pitch, or oh, that form's crap. These boys are going to hurt themselves, or what are they doing biceps for? That's not functional. And you're just thinking, like, I say 2 out of the 3 comments are negative. 100% of the comments that are negative are from, like, accounts that are definitely not available to the public, and accounts of people that are definitely not actually experts.
Yeah, I can believe that. I can't imagine anyone who is an expert, or at least recognised, being like even caring that much.
Well, it's also not being objective enough in their own thinking to, like, understand that there's something to be learned from the top level teams. It's ridiculous. Yeah. So, like, actually, let's go straight from that. We'll touch more on, like, pros and stuff in a bit. Mm-hmm. But I want to know if, speaking of, like, lessons that you should be learning, what have you changed your mind about this year? Within the realm of training. So, or what, maybe it can be, like, I've had a cop out a few times where I've asked myself, what is it that I've learned this year? And my learning is that I should back myself more, that I don't need to, like, keep questioning myself and trying to learn other things. Actually, what I've got is a good solid base, and I'm doubling down on that. What's yours?
I'll tell you what I did this year, which I think you might have done as well this year, which I previously thought was shit, and I went into it with a different expected outcome, which was German volume training.
Okay.
So, when I think of German volume training, previously I've been like, this is a fucking terrible idea. Okay?
Yeah.
Because the volume is insane. Okay? And you're not going to put too much strength on. But I went into it this time because I was looking for a way to build capillarization. Mm-hmm. And to expend some calories, and basically using it as an aerobic tool, basically, or not even a cardio tool, but to do some very specific aerobic adaptations. Mm-hmm. And it worked fantastically. It was really, really effective for that. So maybe, like, not writing off something something like that, which looks dumb on the surface, but maybe using it another way has been super effective.
Yeah. Couldn't agree with you more. Like, I haven't used German volume training this year, but I've done. I think I used it last year. If not, I definitely used it the year before, because I remember using it the year before, and for the same thing, right? It's like one of those things. I have switched from traditional German volume training when I'm doing this stuff to 2 different protocols that I like to do, and actually I've been programming them quite a lot recently. Is 30-30, which is like a Pat Davidson thing. Again, like, talking about the aerobic properties of the muscle. And it's weird that you can actually get, with this sort of, like, low loads training, relatively, you can get really good adaptations. And it actually does. It sounds too good to be true. And if you think about it, it kind of is. But you get fitness, you get muscle growth, and you get strength potential all from this one protocol in an efficient manner in a short period of time. The reason it is too good to be true is that you think, oh my God, I'm going to do all these things. I'm going to be jacked and ripped and really fit within 6 weeks. And it doesn't quite work like that. Like, you get small benefits in lots of different areas efficiently, but you don't get as good a benefit as like a real proper smart dedicated hypertrophy program or a real proper smart dedicated fitness program, etc., etc. But you get 80% of them, of all those different areas, in the same period of time. And so if you just keep chipping away at 80%, and this is probably the lesson I've learned, is like 80 to 90, and when I say, the 80-20 rule for training, it's actually more like 90 to 95, 10 to 5, nowhere near as catchy, so that's why it doesn't catch on. But like, that's the rule of training. If I can get 80 to 90% of the benefits to 95% of the benefits, like, getting those every little extra percentage benefit is exponentially more time, which can then actually be spent on other areas. And that's something I've doubled down for myself. So I only hit the weights twice a week at the minute, and I have been for months, because I've realized that's easily enough, and I'm still progressing. Like, to do any more isn't actually going to give me, it might give me 5% extra benefit, but I'm gonna have to invest 50% more time to do another session. You know what I mean? That's ridiculous. So why would you wouldn't make that trade-off in other situations, yet people go to the gym 6 days a week, sometimes more than once a day. And I think, is that worth the trade-off? Even for bodybuilders where your only goal is to get as big as possible, is that really worth the trade-off?
Yeah, quite right.
Right?
Basically, yeah, like I were world champion to go to a gym 3 times a week.
Yeah, and it's all about, like long term, like,
yeah,
you go 3 times a week, and they go, they'll not go for one of those weeks every 3 to 6 months, and they stay consistent. And it's not even about like the consistency of hitting the gym, it's also the consistency of the work done. They don't have as many bad days, etc., which like they consistently progress, which perfectly leads us on to another question I had for you, or a topic that I want to discuss, is you love your measurements and you love the progressions. How do those two interlink, and why are they so important?
So how the interlink's really interesting. So if firstly, it depends what you're talking about in terms of what you're progressing.
Yep.
Right. So if, say, you're progressing for powerlifting and competition movement, well, there's only a couple of ways to really progress that, right? Because the competition movement in its kind of specificity is just one rep done in a competition environment.
Yep.
Right. So the only real way of changing that is to add load, or take load off, I guess. Okay. You could look at it a couple of different ways of looking to introduce force, but that's kind of what powerlifting is. Now, if you're looking at accessory movements, what you're actually then looking at is, what's the goal of the block? Is it hypertrophic? Is it work capacity? Is it strength? And then you can look at that and go, okay, well, what's hypertrophy? It's the deoxidization of the muscle fibers. So then you're looking at, okay, well, how do I make this progression have enough stimulus to cause deoxidization, or decrease oxygen saturation within the muscle, and use like as high force or tension as possible. Okay. Now, if you have that structure in place, so we're saying, okay, I have this list of exercises that I think are going to gradually increase the amount of tension and force within the muscle, unless you're measuring that kind of force progression, I guess you could say, so how much weight you're using, you never really know when to change it. Because the point you change is when you stop having a stimulus, right?
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So, for example, goblet squats. Like how I've got a guy, he's strong. He'll have a state championship this October. I assume, unless there's some other freak coming through, but he should win the state championships this year. And he has like a 210-pound goblet squat or something, right? Which is fucking insane.
Yeah.
And he's been doing goblet squats for maybe, I don't know, 16, 17 weeks, because he just keeps getting better and better and better. And as his goblet squat goes up, his back squat goes up.
That's nice.
Right, so it's amazing, right? Like, it's just such a gold movement for him for some reason. So there's no need to change it. Like, why would I have him do anything more challenging than the goblet squat? Like, do I need to have him do rear foot elevated split squats? Like,
I love this answer so much. So, like, when you are measuring, it's not to make sure that you're progressing. More so, it's to see whether you're progressing or not. And if you are progressing, like, just because working hard in training, you shouldn't have to push yourself. I mean, you should always have to push yourself, but you shouldn't have to look at the numbers and say, I've got to beat that number, right? Rather, you should always be working hard. And if your numbers are going up, you don't need to do more. This goes back to the 2 weight training sessions a week. You know, like, I see my numbers progressing. I see, like, things going in the way that they need to be going. I don't need to add an extra 50% set of workload on top to eke out any more progression. I'm happy with progressing. Whereas a lot of people, I think, and this happens, I think it does happen quite a lot with hypertrophy, but it happens a lot with fitness as well. They just want to push themselves as hard as they can, and they're not sure how to verifiably confirm that they're getting better. You know what I mean?
Yeah, dude. With hypertrophy, it's really difficult because you don't really have a direct measurement. You can kind of like first order measurements, where you like second order measurements, where you like, I can't really measure my muscle week to week.
Yeah,
that's just kind of done, right? But if your 8 rep max is going up, or your average, like, what I use a lot is average percentage load of a session. So say I've got someone doing lunges. I use a lot of lunges in training. Like, I use more split stance work than bilateral work for a lot of my listeners. If the average percentage they're using over the weeks is going up, I just leave it. But even if they're doing like a ramping set or something like that, and like some of their sets light and some of their sets heavy, or they've overshot the first set and they haven't got the weight, don't care. As long as the average is going up, because that's important, right?
Percentage compared to their 1 rep max.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
just average weight.
Yeah, this is what the average load to the bar. As long as the average load in the bar is going up, don't care.
Yeah. Well, average total volume as well, right? Because it's like, and that's weird where like they say, you've got to, and I've been guilty of saying it, like, to increase your muscle, you've got to consistently you've got to keep progressing volume. Actually, that takes care of itself. And I think that was a big influence from like Mike Israetel, where he would always be like questioning whether you can escalate your sets. But as we've already like sort of alluded to, if you are progressing and you're getting better, like the weight is adding up, is getting higher, or the reps are going higher, that means you're already progressing volume by default. So you want to actually find what is a good amount of volume, and rather than progress it, just stay there. Just stay there and keep progressing and getting better for as long as you can. You don't necessarily have to go faster or harder or anything like that, because the body does that anyway, because of the processes that you're pushing for by training.
Well, yeah, look at like how does hypertrophy work, right? Or how does training work? You apply stimulus, and that stimulus causes a gene to be expressed in a certain way, right? And all you need to do is enough training to get that gene expression. Mm-hmm. So, like, you don't need time off. Like, you don't really need deloads, as long as you're in a place where you're not getting like contraindicative gene expression. Does that make sense? Yeah. I know I'm a bit technical.
No.
But like the idea that we have supercompensation theory is kind of gone now. We're talking about, hey, how can I best get a gene to express the factors needed for hypertrophy?
Yeah, supercompensation is actually just like compensation, and you've just got to get rid of all that fatigue that's masking, like, you've already got to get rid of the fatigue that's masking the fitness, or you can just not let that fatigue be there in the first place. Yeah. Like, which is what you're alluding to. Yeah.
Yeah, so train hard.
And with that, like, we touched on like why it's important for progression. I want to touch on different ways that you can progress. So we've said Like if you find that sneaky way to consistently get stronger, just find your nice little rep range, find your nice amount of volume, and just let that take care of itself. How do we get there?
So you're talking about how do you know it's going well?
Yeah.
Jeez. But so we're saying I'm not quite sure.
Or not even that. Like how do we set it up? Because I keep getting questions now about like how do I progress my lift, enter whatever lift, and like I'm like, dude, there are so many different ways that you can progress a lift, and in fact this is on my mind because I've been working on a video that's going to come up about like how to progress your training, like specifically for strength, and how many different ways there are. But how do you find that area, or you can just name me different ways of progression, right? So you've got double progression, etc., etc.
Oh shit, you want to get that away? Okay, so you're talking about programming theory
Yeah.
more than anything else. Okay, shit, that's too complicated. Let's just go for ways we can do it. So obviously you have different metrics which cause changes. So you've got different stimuli, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we just measure those. Like you have intensity, right? So which is basically how much force you're producing. And force is mass times acceleration for the most part, right? So that gives us two options: either move the same weight faster, or move a heavier weight at the same speed, preferably.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, that comes down to what you want to actually get out of your training. If rate of force development is a bigger interest to you than say maximal strength, then you have your answer there, right? Then you have density of work, okay, which is how much work you do over time. You have work capacity, which is how this is a weird one. We'd probably say average heart rate over a session, right?
Yeah.
So if you have
how
if you
hard
can
that
do
work
more
is for you to do. Yeah. Huh.
Yeah, that's one. Volume obviously is an easy one, which sets times reps times like distance moved times weight, I guess. Have I missed any so far?
Not that I can think of.
Frequency, I guess you could look at, but frequency is a weird one because you want to. Your scheduling is probably a better reason to change frequency than
That's what I was going to say. I don't like progressing via frequency at all. I don't think that's
the only time I progress by frequency is if we can't progress any other way.
Or like life just allows it, Like I wouldn't even call that progressing. I would, like you say, I would just call that a difference in scheduling. I think that doesn't like. I think the most important one actually that we haven't touched on, and the most important thing for progression, and this is something that people ignore, is technique, right? Mm-hmm. And I say this because, like, this is probably, if I look back over my lifting career, probably my biggest error in my lifting is I would force progression via getting worse technique, which means actually we're not forcing progression at all. Actually, what we're doing is we're changing the measurements because what we're measuring, or what we measured last week. Say we do one squat for a set of 5 reps at 120 kilos, just for example, right? That was last week. Okay, this week I've got to beat that. I go in and do 125 kilos for 5 reps. That squat form is significantly worse, or it's just different, right? It's just not as good. Like there's more rounding of the back. Maybe the bar goes at the same speed. Maybe the bar goes slower. Those are 2 different lifts now. So we haven't progressed from 120 to 125. What we've done is we've just done 2 different movements. And yes, we've managed to add load to the bar, but it's not as what we would hoped. And I think a lot of people get caught in that, where they're trying to potentially rush quote unquote progression by adding load to the bar or by forcing out extra reps that aren't quite there. And what they've done is just compromise their technique. And now they're trying to increase that progression or increase the work that they're doing from an already compromised technical standpoint. So you've already come away from your non-negotiable, which should be to have pristine form with every rep of every exercise that you do, pretty much.
I'm gonna say something you probably haven't heard before, or maybe you have. I'm not too sure. But when say you have a squat and you're gonna miss a rep, what's the normal point of failure?
Lower back.
This is going to be applicable. Okay, sweet. So we're not saying it's weak quads. We're saying it's the compensation point. So you fail a movement not when the muscle you want to use is too weak, but it's when the compensatory factors are too weak. Okay, so it's changing from like the goal movement into the compensatory movement, and then that's kind of falling apart. All the energy systems aren't developed enough to do the movement. Okay, so yeah, you're right in saying that, say for a squat, if someone's changing the movement, like they're doing a different lift, basically. But we can also look at it in a point of, hey, we're wanting to train the compensatory factors. So when you're looking at, say, exercise development for rugby, what's, and maybe we're talking about making a tackle or scrummaging, we're looking at the compensatory factors being the deviation or the deformation of the body in contact. Yeah, that's the winning factor of collision, right? Who basically deforms the least.
Yeah.
So if you'll have like your ideal way of doing it, then you'll have the way you compensate for being tackled. If you can fix those compensation factors, you're gonna get more out of the ability to do the other things really well. Does that make sense? More likely to stay in the good positions. So I would kind of veer more towards that kind of idea. That yeah, you're doing different lift and it's maybe not applicable, but do we even really care about what a lift is? Or do we care about fixing the things which are going to matter in the competition?
Well, what I would argue is that, like, for that, if we're trying to like progress strength and we're choosing the squat in order to progress your strength, then we need to make sure that they're still like you still squat well enough. Like rather than actually add load to the bar, you just keep the movement the same, and increase that speed, and you don't hit the point of failure, right? Or you don't change the technique because of a fear of failure. In fact, you should have it's better off to stay within not necessarily a comfort zone, but in a zone of technique that you're good enough to continually improve upon, rather than try to improve too fast and then change that technique. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. So you'd probably come back to the 80-20 principle, right? If it's 80% good, then you're probably okay.
Yes. Yeah, I would agree on that. But that's the problem, is that it gets to the point where, so maybe the 125 kilo isn't the issue, right? That week 2 isn't the issue. The issue is week 3 or week 4, where now we're at a sticking point because we've compromised our technique even more so. We have to continually compromise our technique. And now we're working kind of like, for layman's terms, too hard, and we're not able to actually continually progress, which I think we can go. I want to talk more. Actually, we can leave methods of progression to another podcast, or even something in a video that I'll do individually. But this leads me perfectly on to like why I've seen that pros don't lift as much when we're looking at pro rugby players. Like there are some lifts that are exceptionally heavy. If you look at Andrew Porter, I think it was 280 for a set of 8 recently.
What lift?
A squat. Like
well, it says 3. Was it
350? I think he did. You put Andrew Porter squat? I think he lifted 350 kilos back in school, which I'll come back to. But the fact that like you see most, it's rare. Like you're impressed by some of the numbers that these guys are lifting, but it's nothing compared to like top power lifters. You look at the rowers, like Charlie Ewell's rowing was ridiculous. He did under 30 seconds. He got 200 meters, which is like,
jeez.
Yeah, that's like impressive. Some effort. And then even then, like that's when I go back to the Instagram thing. One of the top comments was, "Oh, give me 4 weeks with this guy, and his rowing technique will be better." It's just like craziness. But the point being, there are some like when you consider, and this is when they become impressive, is when you consider that these guys are not barbell athletes. They're not gym athletes. Yes, they are like physical specimens, and you're going to see that, and it's going to show itself in the gym. But actually, what these guys are doing is actually just preparing themselves to play rugby. And when you look at some of the numbers, and like especially when you look at some of the All Blacks lifting, like I think they do it like they put some of the camera angles on them so that they don't ever really reveal like them lifting like the weight that they're lifting. Leave it to like people thinking, wow, these guys are so strong, and leave that like to the imagination. But they're never lifting that much, like relatively. But what they're always doing is lifting with like good technique, or like you say 80-20, good enough technique and good speed. I never see like if you go to American college sports, you see people grinding the hell out of their lifts with like 100 people like blowing horns behind their back and screaming at them and stuff. You don't see that with these guys, right?
Yeah, it's because they got a job to do, right? They're not doing it to measure their dick. They're doing it to support their actual paid work.
They're not even doing it, and they're not even doing it to, at this point, like Andrew Porter, this is where I go back to, his lift as he did a 350 kilos back squat apparently like in school, I think, or as part of under 20s. He's completed the back squat as far as being the best rugby player he can be is concerned. And we go back to what I said before is, in order to get a 360 kilo back squat, that's not only like going to take so much time, but all of that time is potentially taken away from other areas that he can improve as a rugby player, right? All he needs to do, like, as far as muscle growth and strength is concerned, is maintain. He doesn't need to get stronger. Like, there is no need whatsoever. So all he needs to do in the gym, for the most part, is just maintenance. And that requires, like, minimal amount of work. Maintenance as far as, like, his heavy compound lift goes. Yeah. Then he needs to keep himself as injury-free as possible. That's what his work is going to be towards. Any imbalances, any strength deficits that are there, that are, like, rearing ahead, focus on that. And then speed.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, they're doing an exercise to be better at rugby. No one needs a 350 kilo squat. Like, no one needs that.
Right, like, and so you see a lot of these weights going up, and you see a lot of the sessions that these boys are doing, and they're like, particularly at this time when they're, you know, like less than 2 months away from a World Cup, they're like getting a 10 kilo increase on their back squat. Again, the amount of work that they need to do to increase that back squat by 10 kilos is going to just take away from their job of being the best rugby players, because they're going to have to do some real tough sessions out on the pitch, and that's where they want, like, their returns.
Yeah, you know, I totally agree. Yeah.
I thought you were going to have a lot more input on that topic, as far as like.
I mean, I can talk about it in terms of like exercise selection and why you wouldn't do it. Like, does he even still back squat? Probably not. Like, no, are we putting a barbell on his back? I doubt it. If he's a prop, right? His shoulders don't need that.
No.
He's probably not even back squatting. He's probably doing a
I would actually
squat
I would potentially argue that he is back squatting because he's already so good at it that, like, he could just maintain. I think the recent video of him is him repping out like sets of 8. I don't know if it was 280 or maybe it was just 200 kilos. Just 200 kilos. But, like, that's still strong enough for him as a prop at the highest level of rugby. So he doesn't need to do anymore. So he just needs to continue to maintain it. And at this point, especially in the gym, as far as we're looking at general strength, general aerobic stuff, like, that's going to be all taken care of at this point, right? Any increases in this stuff isn't going to make the difference come the World Cup. The things that are going to make the difference come the World Cup are their ability to execute under pressure, their ability to execute in general, which, like, is going to influence their ability to execute under pressure, their knowing each other under pressure, their ability to play together. Like, that's it. And that's all of their work is going to be down to those things, like the game of rugby. Maybe you can, I mean, I don't know how much extra there, if there are any physical components that they do want to improve, it's going to be like the rarity, but the working on that lactic acid system, potentially alactically, that can make small improvements, and speed. Like, those are the only things, and those need to be trained because they're a lot more difficult to maintain if you aren't continually training them.
Yeah, absolutely. We can talk about the rowing guy. The point. So if someone's saying like, "Hey, give him 4 weeks to me, I'll make him better at rowing," absolutely defeats the point of it. You want him to be a shit.
Yeah, 100%.
Because you want him to try. Right? You want a measurement of actual this brute rowing, like brute force. You don't want him to be more efficient at it. Right?
And in many ways, that goes back to our topic on progression, right? Like, if he then gets faster on the rower because he's improved technique, great, but that hasn't improved his VO2 max. That hasn't improved his ability to, or it wouldn't even be VO2 max, but it wouldn't improve him conditioning wise for the game of rugby.
Yeah.
But flip that on its head, improving your technique in lifts potentially can improve you, because number one, it can improve your absolute load, which is still going to improve your strength in some manner, and number two, improving your movement quality also has its benefits. And I think those are two things that people get conflated when they're talking about make this subtle change to your bench press to add 20 pounds in 2 weeks. There is something to that, but it's not what you think it is.
Yeah, I mean, what you're saying is you want to be applying the right stimuli, right? Mm-hmm. And the goal of lifting is to use the most weight for the most part, right? Where the stimulus of being better at running around on a field is just have better capacity.
Yeah.
And that's what the stimulus you want to do. You want to be, for cardio, for non-specific cardio, you want to be as inefficient as possible.
Yeah, definitely. Nice. What else did we have to discuss?
I stuck it in the chat.
Huh?
I stuck it in the chat. Near there.
Oh, our little chat. Sorry, I how do I find that?
Top right.
No. Where's that? I know what you're talking about. This is a new... there we go. Da-da-da. All right. Let's round out this progression chat. And
sweet.
So this whole area of strength and conditioning, and why, me and you could talk about this forever, because of there's so much nuance and there's so many different ways that you can go around with this nuance, right? So we've tried to distill our thoughts as to how and why to progress, and how and why to measure. But at the end of the day, all you have to do is rationally think about what you want to improve upon. Make sure that you are improving that thing and keep doing that, And eventually you are going to hit some level of plateau, and that's okay. Think of a new way that you can improve it. Maybe you are just fatigued, so wash, rinse, and repeat. Maybe you're just that advanced that it takes longer to improve than you'd hope. So if you're someone that's trying to progress your squat and you're already squatting 200 kilos, maybe you just have to sit at that 200 kilos for a month, or and actually go down because of fatigue, etc. Or maybe even more than a month. Maybe it takes 3 months, and then you add 5 kilos. That's a good win, and that's still progressing. It's just really slow, and sometimes that's what it takes. Which is why we change the movements that we do, because that's just frustrating. Right?
Dude, if I could add 5 kilos on my squat in a month, I'd be stoked.
You know what I mean? But so then rather than just do that and sort of hit your head against a brick wall for 6 months, say you get 5 kilos in 6 months, why not change that movement, see progression in other movements for a bit, and then you come back to your squat. Yes, technically you're weaker because you're untrained, but then you get stronger and you get stronger, and you actually surpass your previous best, not because of what you've just done with the squat, but because of what you've done over the previous 6 months.
Oh, for sure. I haven't back squatted. I back squatted for the first time 3 weeks ago in almost 2 years.
And weak? Or low numbers?
So embarrassingly weak. Yeah.
But that's just because you're untrained. That's not because you've necessarily gotten weaker at the squat. And actually what will happen is if you do eventually start hitting it again, eventually what you'd like to see is you get stronger and actually see that lift go up.
Yeah.
Likewise, this is where this whole conversation comes full circle and ties in perfectly. And this is me putting a little cute little bow on the top of this, right? Likewise, if you're preparing to be the best rugby player that you can be, you want to attack your strength movements. You want to attack mobility. You want to attack hypertrophy. Yeah, you do want to attack mobility, but not in this instance. You want to attack hypertrophy. You want to attack the different things that you can do in the weight room, continually improve those. And eventually, right, you're going to see yourself get better on the rugby pitch as a result. But it's not going to be direct. It's not going to be, okay, I squatted 180 kilos 6 months ago. Now I'm squatting 200 kilos. I'm so much better on the pitch straight away. No, it takes its time. And you've got to then utilize how that physical preparation has allowed you the potential to be a better rugby player. And there's going to be points like where we are right now with these international teams where the physical preparation is almost done in many ways, right? It's we're adding the little cherries on top to those. The real preparation is now grinding out on the pitch as hard as not as hard as possible, but as physically, like that's your main focus physically, and everything else is just geared towards supporting that. Which means that you're not going to lift all the weights in the gym, and that's also okay.
I wonder if there's information anywhere about people's back squat versus tries scored.
No.
That'd be cool to have. I'd be interested if there's anything.
I thought you were going. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That's not recorded anywhere. You know why? Because it's a useless stat. It's not gonna. Yeah. There's not going to be a correlation with that. There's just not. Yeah. Anyway,
if you could find something like that and be like, hey, if this lift goes up, they score more tries. Yeah, you'd be a millionaire.
Well, there's even going to be like a point where I think the biggest correlation is going to be speed and tries scored, and it's going to be like a positive trend, but it's still only going to be a trend. Like you're going to get people that are slow as fuck that score loads of tries. You're also going to get people that are rapid that still never made it. Like you look at, like I think a good example is when you look at Perry Baker versus Carlin Isles, right? Carlin Isles undeniably faster than Perry Baker, but better rugby player. Perry Baker, like 100 times out of 100 almost. Like Carlin Isles has that X factor because of his speed. Perry Baker didn't have as much speed, but made himself basically the best sevens player in the world because he applied that speed to him being a rugby player. And maybe that's because of other physical components, but more so it's just because he actually ended up like showing out more on the pitch. And we don't know what that process was that allowed him to do that.
I ran a regression. I'm doing a lot of statistics as well at the moment. I ran a regression which took lifters' change in weight class over time compared to their Wilks or DOTs, which is basically the relationship between weight and the weight lifted. Like
pound for pound?
Yeah, basically pound for pound. So I do people up and down weight classes versus their pound for pound performance. Mm-hmm. No correlation at all. Like people really? Went up or down, yeah. Because you'd expect people to go up a weight class because they're getting stronger, right? They're getting bigger, so they're getting stronger. Mm-hmm. Nah, they don't. Just nothing. No relationship at all.
Now, I thought that people said that the Wilks score. Maybe I'm thinking of something else. But I always thought that the Wilks score tend to be biased towards the bigger people anyway.
So the Wilks score had like a U curve where it was biased between the extremes. So if you weighed like 300 kilos and squatted like your body weight, it would still give you a higher Wilks score than a middleweight squatted 300 kilos. It was really broken.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why
that's interesting. So what you're saying is like just don't get stronger. Yeah.
Don't drop a weight class. It doesn't make it any better.
So this is people changing their weight class.
Yeah.
So this was something I wanted to touch on. I wanted to wrap this podcast up, but we'll go down this little rabbit hole real quick, right? Something I see a lot of also is, or I don't see a lot of, is when we talk about this training efficiently, and we talk about like the way I'm saying about, you only need to go to the gym and lift weights 2 to 3 times a week or whatever. The people that are lifting 6 to eke out extra benefits, they're not going to get the extra benefits manifest in them actually being bigger than if they train themselves 2 to 3 times a week consistently. Because the biggest factor that governs all of this stuff is going to be your genetics.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it's like going 6 times a week. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's actually going to make that much of more of a difference compared to going 3 times a week. It's just you can at least then tell yourself, hey, I put everything into this. I can now just blame my genetics that I'm small. You know what I mean? But like that's kind of how it has to work. People don't want to stomach that, so they want to say, okay, actually, I need to go 5 times a week. Nah.
I mean,
you know what I'm saying? Like, but I think that's just the way the fitness culture is. Like, Dorian Yates, look how big that bloke was. I think he only trained 4 days a week.
Something like that, yeah. And he was Olympia, right?
Like, literally the biggest, leanest person you could imagine.
Yeah.
Like...
Yeah, it goes back to that genetic expression, right? Do enough work to get your genes to express something. If you're just not built to have that expression, or is this too difficult to do, you're fucked.
You can't force it. And in fact, even then, your time is better spent finding something that your genes are better built to express. So still only go to the gym 2 to 3 times a week. And maybe you're someone that is going to actually be someone that's really fit or fast and explosive or mobile or skills or tactically better. Well, now you've freed up all this time to work on those things. Freaks are going to freak no matter what. You can't force a freak.
Yeah. Mate, just esports. That's the future.
Mate, on that, I was wondering how we were going to wrap this up. You've nailed it. Go do esports. Plug your Kabuki stuff, man.
Yeah, so you'll find us over at eduplus.kabuki strength, or just search Kabuki education. This new site is honestly, it's fucking amazing. There's over 1,000 like educational and exercise videos on there.
What can we expect to learn?
I mean, what can you expect? Look, dude, the categories go from like strength stuff through. We have like a whole nutrition courses, advanced coaching courses. We've got the USPA powerlifting coaches course on there. Fixture and back, tons of stuff on back health. My particular favorite is something called Effort, Force, and Heaviness by Guido van Wezen. Guido is a doctor. He's actually set up his own schools across the world. He basically talks about the perception of heaviness and how you can decrease the perception of heaviness to enable you to lift more weight. Oh, super interesting. Yeah,
that is interesting. Yeah,
super interesting. So,
how cool? Is there any really longevity stuff on there? Recovery stuff, sleep stuff?
Yeah, so we have Joel Jameson's sleep and recovery course on there. There's a ton. All the Kabuki Education Week stuff's on there. It's honestly, it's like $29 a month or something. It's definitely worth it. Honestly, like $29 a month for some of these courses, which cost $400 or $500. So it's hard to say no.
If you're interested in that stuff, just search Kabuki Education and it will come up, right?
Yeah, it's the best way of doing it.
Expect to lose a lot of time into this stuff, but it's well worth it.
If you're a coach, it's probably more applicable if you're coaching people.
100%. Or if you're just really interested in this stuff, like, and this gets you. If you want to learn how to make the best program you can for yourself, don't do that. Mm-hmm. Go to rugby-muscle.com and like get it done for you. Like, I'm serious. Like, we always say this: getting a coach, the most efficient way to take care of your training. Learn, and if you want to learn on the side, but don't do your own training. It just doesn't. That's not how you learn, especially
really
most.
Difficult.
Yeah, it's
really, really difficult.
And again, an absolute time suck.
What I can do, TJ, is I actually give you a free link to this.
Mate, do this off air. You can give me a free link. Like.
Oh, I mean, there's like 20 hours of free material.
Ah. Okay. So I'll pop that in the description below, mate. Beautiful.
Yeah.
All right.
There you go.
Beautiful.
Sweet.
Got that. All right, mate. It's been great chatting to you.
You too, man.
You guys listening, hope that went well. If you have any comments on the stuff that we spoke about, I'm going to get Alex again. We're going to get regularly on this, me and you. So comment in the comments below on YouTube, or ask a question, or actually no, go find a YouTube, leave your comment there. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcast, I hear Stitcher's going away. So wherever you listen, wherever you get your podcast, give us a 5-star review. Review it on Apple Podcasts. Just leave the 5 stars on Spotify. People have been really good at doing that. If you want to hear more of these interviews, let us know in the comments or on the Apple Podcasts review section. That'd be great. Thank you guys so much for listening or watching. I'll see you in the next one.